Zoom, are you sharing screen? Second screen. Wait, you're not coming, they are not coming. No, we did it. You come this way and do it. They are settling it. People, can you hear? Hello, those online, can you hear? Nobody's online yet, just me. So how come the screen is not being shown? Why? All right, good evening. Yes. This is our maiden lecture, I think, on the PhD program. The finance students had a lecture this morning with Prof. Haruna. This, Muda, see what we are projecting. Just close it, this. Okay, so I'm going to be co-teaching this course with Professor Haruna. I'm not sure whether using the word teaching is appropriate at this level, because in actual fact, I'm not going to be teaching you. We're going to be having discussions on some topical issues. Eh? The PhD platform. Yeah, so it's not going to be we're not going to use the traditional approach of me coming and standing here and talking for 2 hours and going. So what I want us to do would be to agree on the ground, the fair ground rules, and then we can start. I think that would be the best way for us to do this and do it well. The course is philosophy of management, and there are quite a number of things we intend to do in this course. And the idea behind this course, just forget about what is being projected, so that we discuss the idea behind the course, philosophy of management. You see, when you become a researcher, there are a lot of things that should influence the way you see things. So oftentimes, academics will say that what shapes your worldview will determine how you see things as a researcher. This course basically is going to be about how we are going to position ourselves in terms of our worldview of things. When I say our worldview of things, to be specific, we want to position ourselves in terms of our worldview of reality. So by the time we finish with this course as a PhD candidate, you should be very conversant with how you see reality. And how you see reality determines a number of things for you as a researcher. So I'll give you a typical example. If you are a manager and somebody comes first thing Monday morning and reports to you that so and so has said A, B, C, D about you, and then leaves. And the next thing you do, you call your secretary and say, write a query letter for Mr. So and so, without hearing from the alleged person who made the comments against you. In that case, we would describe you as having a worldview that is coined in terms of black and white. You see things in black and white. So that person probably has shown some tendencies which supports your judgment that possibly he has done that. So instead of listening to other points of view, you just make up your mind and say, well, write a query. I'm not going to listen to anybody at all. I have to deal with you. Another manager would take a very completely different viewpoint and say that, okay, call me that gentleman. And then he would sit the gentleman down and ask him why he has said A, B, C. And maybe the context may be different. And most particularly, we can even look at current circumstances that are happening around us. The interview that was granted by Phyla. Many people are saying that what she said about the celebrities, her expression of disappointment about the celebrity, some big celebrities not coming, was on a lighter side. But others are just saying that the moment that thing came out of her mouth, we are going to deal with her. You are wrong. They are not considering the context. So we are saying that as researchers, the way we see things should largely be based on our worldview of things. This worldview is often described as our philosophical assumptions. And these philosophical assumptions are technically referred to as the researcher's research paradigm. So largely this course about philosophy is about research paradigm and how we can position ourselves. Why is it important? Why is it important that we should discuss or try to understand research paradigm? Because research paradigms influences quite a number of things for the researcher. So for instance, as a PhD candidate, I was lucky when I was starting my PhD. My supervisor told me point blank that if I do anything quantitative, he's not interested. So he told me, if I do anything quantitative, he's not interested. You may not be lucky to have a supervisor like that who will tell you from the onset that this is the methodological approach I want you to take. The way the PhD journey is, you are supposed to explore. The supervisor provides you the guidance. So the supervisor may just say, I want this guy to explore. If the supervisor is very conversant with qualitative and quantitative approaches, he will just leave you to discover yourself, where your strengths are, and then you can decide. But we are saying that you can't just say, as we speak, some of you may be saying that, oh, my methodological approach is going to be qualitative. Others will be saying qualitative. Others will be saying mixed. We are saying that as a researcher, you can't say that. You can't say that because it is only your worldview of things as a researcher, your philosophical assumptions, that it is those philosophical assumptions or your research paradigm that determines which way you go. So your research design, all of that depends on the way you see things. That is why we think this course is very important, because the fundamentals that are going to be covered here will cut across all the other courses and our research process till we finish the program. So largely the course explores philosophical foundations and assumptions of management research. And when we say management research, we are just interested in research, the sort of research that we carry in typical business schools. People in social science, there are people in political science are also in social science. But the way the kind of research they do, we are going to argue that it differs slightly from the way we do, though we are all situated in the field of social science. So we'll be examining how different philosophical perspectives shape our understanding of organizations, management practices, and their overall research process. The idea behind this is that some of you will get the PhD and may not be lecturers. Some of you will work in research-oriented organizations as research fellows. Some of you will go back to industry. So this is not only to help us shape the research process, but also to help us in our understanding of management and management practices. So by the end of the course, you should be able to gain a critical understanding of the nature of knowledge in management. The nature of knowledge in management. Almost all of us here have master's degrees. They tell us that at the undergraduate level, you can do anything at all as your undergraduate thesis and get away with it. At the postgraduate level, master's level, they tell you that you must contribute to what? To knowledge. You must contribute to knowledge. And this will help us in the knowledge contribution process. For us, the knowledge contribution should be clearly situated in the context of management. So there are quite a number of things we intend to do. And the objectives are that we should be able to analyze the ontological and epistemological assumptions of major philosophical schools of thought. What this means is that we're going to be considering there are so many philosophical schools of thought. Now, I always do this with the assumption that none of us here understands even what philosophy is. So when we are starting the lecture, we'll try to understand what we mean by philosophy. Broadly, we'll be looking at the major philosophical schools of thought and how these major philosophical schools of thought see reality. So if I say reality, one's view of reality will depend on your philosophical assumption. Now, how you also go about understanding the reality is also very, very important. So we all would see this. Let me give this example. If you are in Ghana, or maybe Tamale, and you say you are playing football, the assumption is that you are in the pitch kicking a ball around. But Americans have a version of football. So if you are in America in a different context and you say football, it may not necessarily mean soccer ball. Are you getting it? So the context is very, 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 very important. So So for them, the reality of football is different from their reality of football is different from our reality of football. Now, assuming we all didn't know anything about football, now how we would would be football, but we don't know anything about that.
So you are trying to say that I've not seen Your Excellency.
The issue then would be, if you are not asking a question, those online, please mute yourself. If you are not asking a question,
how are you?
Mute yourself. So the reality could be out there. But even how, as a researcher, how you go about knowing the reality is also very, very important. So we're looking at two things here. Reality and how you go about knowing the reality. So from today onwards, we'll try to be very conversant with this thing about reality and how we go about understanding the reality. And largely, these things are about what is referred to as ontology and epistemology. Three critical terms are very important for us: ontology, epistemology, and methodology. And as we go on, we'll see how these three terms
So we need to start putting our heads together to see how best that we can get addition.
Isaac Boatin, why? So first lecture today, and I indicated that I'm going to be co-teaching with my vice dean, Professor Haruna. So we have 9 sessions. The last session is basically about you making some presentations and doing some work. But that doesn't mean that we are just going to come every week and stand here and talk and go. That's not the approach we are going to adopt. Every lecture or discussion would try to engage you in a discussion and maybe also to do a write-up, which we can build on in subsequent lectures. So today we are interested in providing an introduction to the philosophy of management research. And basically what we'll do today in this introduction will be to understand what we mean by philosophy in the context of management research. And then we'll try to provide reasons why it is important that at this stage of our academic career, we should be going back to studying philosophy. Why is it necessary? Then we'll look at the nature and scope of management or organizational research. Yeah, so we'll be using the term management research, organizational research interchangeably. We'll also try to create some basic distinctions between different types of research, basic as opposed to applied research, natural science research as opposed to social science research, as well as disciplinary and interdisciplinary research. Then last but not the least, we would want to trace the trajectory of organizational or management research. And I think that will be the takeaway for you to do. Something you can dig up to try and trace the trajectory of the evolution of management and organizational research. If you have done a bit of philosophy before at the undergraduate level, some of the controversies we will raise in this course will not come as a surprise to you at all. And I say that because I remember somewhere in my level 200, our philosophy professor, Professor Gechi. Professor Gechi is one of the renowned philosophers ever in Africa, very renowned guy. He's currently late. And what they did was at the undergraduate level, they will make sure they introduce business school students to philosophy. So it was a pre-elective, and you will have to go to a different faculty. I don't know why it's not currently happening in UDS. So our undergraduate students, for instance, could go to Nyankpala and take a course from social science faculty, philosophy. And during one of these guys' lectures, he asked us a question, which I have never forgotten. He said, we all will celebrate both religions that are of the Abrahamic faith would celebrate the sacrificial of is it Isaac, right? Ishmael. So his case was that why is it that religious people will always argue that it was God that whispered or sent an angel to tell Prophet Abraham to slaughter the son in sacrifice? That possibly it could have been a devil. It could have been satanic. But because of our orientation towards religion, we all say that it was God. But there's no evidence that it was God. It could possibly be something. Especially these days that people are talking about the origin of creation, and they are bringing into focus the existence of the Anunnakis. Have you heard about the Anunnakis? Yes. They say all what is written in the Bible, all what is written in the Quran, if you look at, there are some ancient tablets, all of that were copied from that. And they make this argument and provide evidence. Philosophy provides you the ability to be able to question these things without the threat that your head will be what? Will be cut off. And we'll be dealing with a lot of these things. The interesting thing is that we are not going to go that deep into philosophy. We just want to touch on it to see how that philosophical underpinnings will shape our understanding of the different kinds of phenomena we're going to be looking at. For instance, there are HR people here, entrepreneurship, information systems. The way we see things as we go on will start to differ as we progress. So that will be the first lecture. The second one, and there are, for every lecture, there is a list of references. But there are some key texts. For instance, the Philosophy of Management Research book by Chang. I will make it available to you, so don't worry. You are expected that at least you should read the chapter 1 and chapter 2. And there's some other reference texts which I will make available to you. Lecture 2 would be to look at theoretical perspectives. And our focus here would be to understand what we mean by theory. When we say theory, what do we mean? That will be our focus here. They say there's nothing new under the sun. So whatever phenomena you intend to study for your PhD, they say there is some kind of theory that explains some related concepts to the phenomena you are looking at. So you as a researcher should go out there and dig and look for that appropriate theory to explain some of the things you are trying to work on. It is possible that at the end of your research, the theory may not appropriately explain that phenomenon. And that is where you will situate yourself as contributing to what? To knowledge. And this could just involve you extending the theory just a little bit. Or it could involve you applying the theory in a context that the promulgators of that theory never, ever thought about. So it is important that we understand what we mean by theory. Then we try to understand what we mean by theoretical constructs. Whether you are looking at theory in the context of qualitative research, or you are looking at theory in the terms of quantitative research, our understanding of theory and how it underlies our research is very, very important. And this paper by Shelley Gregor is very, very critical. That we all read it. The third topic would be on logical reasoning. Logical reasoning. You will only see the importance of this particular topic when you start writing. When you start writing, you would possibly send your chapter 1 to your supervisor, and he will send it back and say the flow. That there's no flow. Basically, what he's telling you is that logically, the connectivity is not there. The coherence, everything boils down to it. But the way you logically reason as a researcher is also very, very important and can be seen from different contexts. And your philosophy will also influence the way you reason. Just like the manager will take anything that is whispered into his ear, and another manager will not do that. The same way that our understanding of this logical reasoning approaches in research will shape the way we would be able to argue in terms of our writing of our thesis. Then the fourth session will be to look at the major philosophical schools of thought. And the major ones are positivism, interpretivism, critical realism. Here, the focus here would be to look at ontology and the nature of reality. So we'll be asking the question, what is the nature of reality in organizations? Some would say that they see something is black and white, that's all, nobody changes them. But others, somebody comes to talk to him, another person comes to talk to him, completely he will change. Many times, let me just go back a bit, many times you would see those who are very quantitatively biased, especially experts in finance, will often tell me that qualitative researchers, the kind of research you do is not research. Why? It's because of their philosophical underpinning. Whatever, we would sit people down, have a discussion with them, we'll do record them, we'll do a whole number of things. But for them, the figures speak. When they look at the figures speak. Now, when the figures say A, or it's either A or B, but ours is not like that. So for instance, during your undergraduate studies or master's level, you would have maybe gathered some data. You developed a data collection instrument, and you just gave it out to students to fill, and you gave them possible answers. But what did you do? You predetermined the answers they should. It should be within the confines of the options you have given. We are saying that other researchers will not do that. They will ask you an open-ended question, and then you explain and explain and explain. They move on to another person, and the person will explain it differently from their perspective. Are you getting it? So it means the way those who went through the interviews, their view of reality will be different from the view of reality of the one who just had options to what? To shade, because you have limited him. And basically that's what we are saying here. To the extent that when I am conducting research, especially for those in finance and in accounting, they will tell you that as a researcher, you are not part of the research. We are aware of this. You are not part. When it comes to the data collection, don't put yourself in it. It is only the respondents who would answer and give it to you. We often say that you are standing aloof, away from the data. But there are other qualitative approaches that doesn't go that way. You as a researcher, you are also part of what? The research. So even when you interview people, what they say, you will have to use your own constructions to judge what they say. Another example, there's this research I was involved in with an Indian man. Actually, my PhD, an Indian consultant. We went to do some requirements gathering. A requirement gathering, basically, a system was going to be developed, and we needed to interview people in an organization to understand their needs and expectations of the system. So anytime we went to an office, if this guy is in agreement of something, he will be shaking his head like this, Indian. And this caught me off guard. And I was also taking my notes. He will be shaking his head. It was later that I realized that for an Indian, shaking the head left and right meant that he was in. But I was always interpreting it that this guy is not agreeing to what they are saying. So me as a researcher, my mental construction of this guy's actions will be different. Are you getting it? If I am part of the research, then it means my constructions of his actions would influence the research. Some philosophical schools of thought say that if me, as a researcher, whether he cuts off his head or he does whatever, I am not part of it. I'm not supposed to do what? Interpret it. Okay. So look at that here. And that is where the issue of objective research and subjective research will come. Objectivity and subjectivism. And then we'll move on to social construction of reality and what it means for social science research. So I believe by this fourth lecture, I would have ended my session and Vice Dean will come in to look at. So he will continue with the major philosophical schools of thought, but he will be looking at possibly epistemology and the nature of knowledge, and then methodology and research design. It is no coincidence that we have arranged the course outline this way, because it is only when you have understood the previous concepts like epistemology and the nature of knowledge, ontology and the nature of reality, that it is only when you have understood that you can now start thinking about your research methods. You cannot just choose. So basically what I'm saying now is that as a researcher, a PhD researcher, you can't just get up and pick it and say, me, I'm doing qualitative. No. Something should influence you to do qualitative. And even the qualitative, there are other paths you may go through. So he'll be looking at epistemology and the nature of knowledge. Then he'll be asking questions and answering questions on how we can know anything about organizations. And that's what I mentioned about going about knowing the what? The reality. Then he will look at alternatives of knowing implications and its implications for research methodologies. The fifth one is also on the philosophical schools of thought, but here the concentration would now be on the methodology, how the previous concepts will have influenced you to choose a particular methodology. Then 7 will be critical management studies and the critique of management research. We'll look at the issue of power, the role of power and ideology in management research. If one will be on principles for conducting and evaluating. So by the time we get here, all of you would have decided at least that you are situated in a particular philosophical school of what? Of thought. Now, assuming I'm intentionally not mentioning the names of the philosophical schools of thought because we are not there yet. Depending on where you stand at that point, when you have conducted your research based on your philosophical schools of thought, there are certain criteria that you can use to judge or evaluate your research. So for instance, assuming my research is so subjective, evaluating the validity of my research is different from another researcher whose study is largely what? Objective. What you often would say quantitative and qualitative. I don't want to say that now. Are you getting it? So how I am going to judge the validity of research, it differs. Whether I'm using a qualitative or quantitative, or I'm using some school of thought and another person is using another school of thought. Another important example. I did my thesis and I didn't have research objectives. If you pick my thesis, no research objectives. My supervisor was fine. External examiners, fine. Day of Viva. And the way they do their Viva in UG, they open it to the public. Then they will keep asking the questions until they are tired. Then they will be asking any more. So we were just about to close. Then the graduate school dean, somebody of agricultural background, listen carefully. He said, I didn't see your objectives. Can you explain why? Then I said, considering my philosophical stance, I don't need to state what my objective is. Because I don't even know what I'm going to unravel as part of my process. So I just have questions. And he said, no. You can't do that. Are you telling me that you can just go to the roadside, any trotro that's coming, you want to go to Medina, any trotro that's coming, you just enter. And the whole place was thrown into chaos. Yes, because some people sided with him. I was able to talk, but still I couldn't convince this man. Then when they retired, to take a decision, the internal examiner who understood my philosophical, they told him that, Master, that we don't do that. That's not the way he has done it. That's the way it is. And he now understood. So when they came back, they said nothing about it. This is very important because even when your thesis is done, the external examiner will send it to. We have to check. So at the undergraduate level of master's level, that rampant choice of external examiners, we are not going to do that because someone will mess the whole thesis up or mess the candidate up because he doesn't understand the candidate's philosophical or worldview. So he said, we don't do research like that. I could give you several examples. A paper I wrote, we used to have a publications platform. And I did a paper, and we used to write and then share our publications on that platform. So I shared a paper, and somebody of a tourism background chatted me privately. That's when we were in WA, and said, and it was a sole-authored paper. That for me, I would have done it this way. The paper is published, and you are telling me you would have done it this way. So I said, no, you are not right. And so, no, he's just bringing a suggestion. I can take it or not. So basically what I did was, I went and got a paper explaining the way I had done it and just forwarded it to him. And I made a note. I told him that this is the way we do information systems research. And that shut him up. What I'm trying to say is that as you progress, your only defense would be evidence. As you progress, your only defense would be evidence. This thing you are taking is evidence-based. So someone argues with you, you pull a paper. Of course, you can't keep everything open, but there are some seminal papers in your field you cannot miss. Okay. So the last one, the 9th topic. At this stage, we expect that you should be able to develop a personal philosophy of management research by reflecting on your own philosophical assumptions, articulating your values and beliefs as a researcher, and how all of that will impact your philosophy. Your philosophy will impact your research practice. This is what the course is about. Interestingly, there are so many PhD holders, they have never done philosophy of management research. And if you mention it, they will ask you, what kind of course is that? Yes, we intentionally did this because me and the vice dean, we both went through this particular course and we know the importance of going through it. So the key texts are there. Required readings, this book by Chang, The Philosophy of Management Research, then Doing Critical Research, then Grant's book on Social Construction of Management Knowledge, and then this book, Burrell and Morgan. Please, you see this, Burrell and Morgan, Sociological Paradigms and Organizational Analysis. You cannot talk about research paradigms without knowing this. It's a household name among PhD candidates in the social sciences. You will hear Burrell and Morgan. Burrell and Morgan. We will see. So this is the course outline. I'll share it on the platform later. So, yes. Yeah, any question? This is not a lecture, it's just the outline. Yes. 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 I'm happy you have mentioned that. Burrell and Morgan is a seminal book. It's not actually a paper. It's a seminal book on research paradigms. There are current versions. Yes, but this one is so seminal that you need to know the origin. So even if you are using the 2020 version, you need to know that Burrell and Morgan goes as far back as what? 1979. So even when you are doing your research, seminal papers, which are dated in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you are allowed to use them. We hope that you will find this course very, very interesting. It can be very confusing, yes. On assessment, okay, I think it's somewhere. Class participation, 10%. I expect us to come to class. So from now on, next week, I'll expect that you will have done the reading for this week and next week, for what we are doing, and then next, you will have done the reading. So that when we come, I'm not going to be teaching, actually. So we just discuss, and then we go. We'll discuss and go. So 10%. So if we don't see you around, you may lose the 10%. If you are online too, we expect that you contribute. You can unmute yourself and talk, and then we'll give you the opportunity to. Then, short essay assignment. As for this short essay assignment, there will be many of them. I'm here to discuss with Prof, but we will probably just make it one every lecture. Short is maybe 1 page, 2 pages, just to get your thoughts on. Because you see, you very soon you realize that the only way you can write well is to write many times. That's the only way. The AI will do it for you, but will catch you. That is the problem. You write and write well. Okay. Then final research, there will be no sit down exam. We'll provide a term paper, and then you write it up, submit it, and then you would, when you submit it, you will present it. You will present it. So possibly we'll share some of what we have done in the past in relation to this. So for instance, the term paper may look like, if you are doing MIS, you would have to trace that philosophical argument, the philosophical foundations in your field, and then use it with your personal philosophy. You come up with a paper in a way. As we go on, we'll elaborate more on how we will do that. Okay, so we can now start with our introductory lecture, Introduction to the Philosophy of Management Research. Are we recording? Yes. It's not. But how come? Okay. This one. Let me see. Let me see. Yeah, so what is philosophy and why is it relevant to management research? Okay. Then we'll look at the nature and scope of management or organizational research. Then we'll look at the different types of research: basic, applied, natural, social, disciplinary, and interdisciplinary. Then we'll end the lecture. So I want us to start off by explaining what we mean by philosophy. What is philosophy? Philosophy. Yes. Yes. Yeah, how you perceive or interpret reality. I agree with you 100%. Your perception of reality and your interpretation of reality will depend on you asking some fundamental questions. You ask, so if they say soccer ball, you ask yourself, you will ask yourself some fundamental questions before you would voice out the fact that this is football or this is so and so. So when we say philosophy, we are basically interested in asking some fundamental questions related to existence, related to knowledge, values, reason, mind, and language. Majority of the time, when we are talking about philosophy, we are interested in critical thinking. And that is what we are interested in developing in this class. So it involves critical thinking, analysis, and reflection on the topics of existence, knowledge, values, reason, mind, and language. And the idea behind it is to understand the nature of reality and our very existence as human, as well as the underlying principles that will govern the various aspects of our lives. The underlying principles that govern the various aspects of our lives are usually the issues of ethics, not so. So what is wrong here may not be wrong somewhere. So there may be some rules that guide aspects of our lives here, but the moment you go out, so we need to question all of this as part of our understanding what philosophy is. To understand philosophy, there are a number of critical things we need to understand. We need to understand that philosophy involves a systematic inquiry. Now, we have to, first of all, understand that when we are carrying out research, we often say we use a scientific method or approach. Using a scientific method or approach basically means that if I conduct research using A, B, C approach, if somebody takes the steps, you should be able to do the same experiment or conduct the research and get similar or near to those results. So philosophy involves a systematic inquiry. It also involves, and being systematic cannot be haphazard. I don't know if you understand. Being systematic cannot be haphazard, which means that if we are going to be systematic, then it means we are going to be a bit rational in the way we do things. So we also say that philosophy involves rational exploration. If we want to understand the nature of reality, we have to do it in a rational way. So people will often ask, you say atheists, for instance, will often ask, you say there is God who created everything. So who created him? Yeah, you say there's God, he created everything. Who created him? But our view of reality as believers means that creation ends somewhere. Someone creates and was never created. Isn't that the case? So because of this guide in our mind, we would understand the nature of reality different from an atheist who would question the existence or nature of reality by assuming that everything in existence must have been what? Created. But we as believers, because of we call it faith, not so. Yeah, but even when we are arguing based on this faith, to us, it appears very, very rational to us. So if you are a Muslim, you are a Christian, you are a Hinduist, and you are explaining your religious beliefs and someone is not explaining, you marvel and you wonder, why can't you understand the fact that ABC? But the atheists will tell you that all of you, even what you are saying, who created, are you getting? So the nature of reality, the differences in the way we see things in terms of who a religious person is and an atheist is all based on the issue of what? How we perceive reality. Okay? It is also important that, so all of this is supposed to provide us a comprehensive understanding. And philosophy draws on several fields. It draws on several fields. So if you look at the philosophers in the past, renowned philosophers, then their expertise in subjects were not just one, finance, and that's all. He's a philosopher. No. A philosopher would have an idea, count, whatever, just name it. Because all of this come together to shape their understanding of reality in a better way than someone who has that limited idea of reality. We also indicated that, somebody had indicated that philosophy is about how we perceive things, and how we interpret it. And we said that, yes, it falls in line with the issue that philosophically we need to ask some critical or fundamental questions. We want to see some of the, what are these fundamental questions going to be about when we are asking questions about reality? So the nature of reality, questioning the nature of reality and asking what exists and exploring the essence of being. Then also questioning human existence, seeking to understand the essence of human existence and probing into questions of purpose, identity, and the meaning of life. Most often than not, people who are very, very philosophical, we often chide them as being mad. Huh? Yes. There's this guy on TikTok. I don't know his name, the woman on TikTok. He says a lot of things which are very, very philosophical. Is it Lukman? Not the one, not the madman with the. Huh? Not Kwati. No, he talks about, sometimes he talks about the Malams in town. He said, I found a yeah, you see that sometimes some of the issues he raises are very, very fundamental, and it hits the core of our Malam. But people will often say, oh, this guy, yeah, is because sometimes he questions our very existence and ask questions that ordinarily, when you ask it in a mosque or in a church, they will tell you that. Yeah. We also said that philosophy explores issues that affects all aspects of our life. And I mentioned the issue of what? Morality and ethics. It extends to ethical consideration, examining what is morally right or wrong, and the principles that guide human behavior. One other thing that was highlighted, you would see that I think the first slide, I put some words in red. And those words in red are actually what we are highlighting on. The next one was on critical thinking. Critical thinking. Importance of critical thinking and reflection. As researchers, we are saying that the reason why we should do a course in philosophy of management research is for us to be able to think logically, analyze, do our analysis with rigor. Now, when we say analytical rigor, what do we mean? The ability to analyze and evaluate ideas rigorously. And this involves, when we say rigor, basically we are just saying break everything down into small pieces and also see how they are connected to each other in a logical and coherent way. It is also important that we as PhD researchers, we become critical, because if you are not critical, you will not be independent in your thinking. You will never be independent in your thinking. And this is what is going to happen. Almost all of us here. The first year, I think almost all of us here are now thinking, what topic am I going to write on? And then you have a number of topics you sent your supervisor to look at. He says, oh, can you consider this? This is going to go on for the next 6 months. You are going to be thrown into a period of confusion about the topic you are going to, because that independence of thought is not there yet. So your supervisor will suggest some things for you. We would suggest things for you to do that are in our interest. But later, and we'll tell you what to do. First sessions, first year. Second year, we tell you what to do. The way you have written the literature review or the chapter 1, you go back to your room and you now start questioning your supervisor. As you said this, I did it. And I brought it back and you said I change it and did it. You'll be complaining to your, I don't know what's wrong with this man. This, I have changed, I don't even know. You are now beginning to question things. If you are not careful, if you are lucky, 3rd year, you will now tell your supervisor that, this is the way it should be. Yes. And he argues, no, you can't use that theory and say, I can't. You say, why? Then you now pull paper, evidence. And you remember I mentioned, you now pull a paper and say that, look, so and so apply the theory in this way. I think I can also apply it that way. It happened to me. I was thrown into this confusion during my coursework. Serious confusion. Experiential period came, and we are lucky, ours was 4 years. Second year experiential, then the thesis is for only 2 years. and 2 supervisors. If you have 2 supervisors, that thing is a killer. If you have 2 supervisors. Well, one person will tell you this, another person would say the opposite. Now, one of the supervisors was always making mockery of me because anytime I go there and he asked me what I was doing and I relate to him what I was doing, he would laugh it off. Very, very soon you will see because his philosophical underpinning was completely different from my supervisor. He was a very subjective researcher and the other one was in the middle, mixed. So anytime, then one time he told me, Ibrahim, anytime I see you, you are changing topic. What is that? What's wrong with? And to be honest with you, this happened about 5 times. I did about 5 proposals. Yes, supervisor will say this, go and do so. No, that's not what I meant. But you have done 2 weeks, you have done a proposal already. So you go back again, change it, and come back and say, then one day he just called and said, can you come to the office? I think you should be looking at so and so. Follow this. And I said, I will do it. Because I just wanted a PhD. Eh? But that same person, I was going to use a particular theory, then he said, no, you can't use it. I ended up using it. But at some point, I was now going to make my work more complex by combining it with another theory. And he said, no, this is not doable. You can't do that. You can't. And I said, it's doable. By that time, I was able to publish a couple of conference papers. So the confidence came. And you know, one interesting thing we are also going to learn is that sometimes your supervisor may not have the time to look at your work. You rely on extra hands somewhere, put a paper together, send it out. Sometimes at the blind side of your supervisor, it gets accepted, he gets to know, he's happy. That's when he will leave you alone. You say, oh, the guy is now, and that is the point you will now start telling your supervisor, no, I think I can do it this way and that way. Then he will ask you for the evidence, and you show the reference to support that. So independence of thought encourages individuals to think independently, fostering intellectual autonomy and the capacity to form well-founded conclusions based on reason. As part of the PhD journey, even if we were not going to do this philosophy of management, our aim is to ensure that you become independent. And my supervisor will do this. Anytime we have a seminar, and I will go to his office first before we go to the seminar ground. Anytime we are going, he say, Ibrahim, you are on your own. I will never, he said, you are on your own. Don't think that when we go there, I'm going to be defending you and doing that. Meanwhile, my colleague's supervisor was always defending him. Independence of thought. Early in your PhD career, you will realize that you may think that your supervisor is not helping you by pushing you to be independent. But when you are done, you will be comfortable in your own skin to speak about things without somebody backing up what you are trying to. So the independence of thought as a researcher is very, very, very important. Alternative perspectives. Alternative perspectives. This course is going to prove to us that there is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to the journey you are beginning. So even if we take those who are quantitatively biased, finance, there are different ways they can go about perceiving reality. Yes.
I see that a lot.
He's the best. I don't think it's a weakness. Everybody believes his approach is the best. It's not a weakness. It's not a weakness. If you are an expert in your field or in your worldview, you will behave the same way. You will behave the same way. This course exposes you to the alternatives that we are talking about. But if you become an expert in your field, you realize that what my finance friends have been telling me, that what I'm doing is not research, you would likely do the same thing. Because for some, their worldview is like religion. Like this supervisor I keep talking about. His worldview is like religion. If you go to UGBS, interpretivism, if Not him, nobody else. It's like religion to him. So any other person. So he feels that this is superior to any other person. Yes.
So I believe that anytime we send a paper and it's rejected, one or two reasons that if we should take it in good faith.
Yeah, we take it in good faith. In fact, some of it may be because of that. Yes. For some, you see, one thing we also let some when we start sending papers out, some journals they will tell you the kind of papers they will take, the kind of methodological approaches they will take. There are so a lot of finance journals. If you send qualitative, they will throw it away. They will reject it because it doesn't align with their philosophy. It doesn't align with. That is not to say that people of finance background don't do qualitative research, but they are just few. They are just few. Then reflection. As for this one, it needs no explanation. You will do it and do it and do it. Self-awareness through reflection, thoughtful contemplation, and self-examination. Throughout the PhD journey, you are going to be engaged in this as part of your intellectual growth. Now, all the philosophical assumptions we are going to be going through, there's this Scottish philosopher, David Hume. He described philosophy as under-laboring. He describes it that way because he thinks that philosophy clears all the garbage, all the rubbish on the ways of the other sciences or other areas. It is only through philosophy that you can see through understanding the nature of reality and reality to be able to study the phenomena you are looking at. So he referred to it as philosophical under-laboring. This guy also maintains the same thing by saying that if we employ it can be employed as the under-laborer in cleaning a little and removing some of the rubbish that lies in the way to knowledge. Remember that when we are doing PhD, this is just where we want to get contribution to it. So to be able to clear all the rubbish on your way to contributing to knowledge, these philosophical understandings are very, very critical, very critical. So why is it important that we do philosophy in management research? We'll look at some importance. Why is it important? It is important because we are saying that how you go about understanding the phenomena you are going to look at. So for instance, you want to look at, give me any topic. Anything. Huh? He says the impact of NIA, National Identification Authority. So let's say the impact, examining national identification systems on economic development. When we see a topic like this, the first thing as researchers we should be thinking about is, what am I studying? That is the phenomena you are looking at. How are you going to go about understanding that particular phenomenon? So, if looking at a topic, so I will say it again, National Identification System. The topic is very simple in economic development. Basically, the topic is about NIA, National Identification System. So the phenomena we are looking at is identification systems. Broadly, we can call it biometric or whatever system. Understanding the phenomena is one thing. How are you going to go about knowing it? And the way you go about knowing it will inform your methodology. So for some methodologies, they just go about knowing it by developing questions and throwing it out to people. Sometimes they won't even answer it. They just pick and give it to them. But others, no matter how many questionnaires are answered and sent back, it cannot explain the phenomenon unless you sit one-on-one to be able to understand the nature of the reality. So philosophy will help us in understanding how knowledge is acquired and what methods are appropriate for gaining insights. One thing you also have to understand is that if we keep saying that the nature of the major reason why we are doing a PhD is to contribute to knowledge contribution. The knowledge contribution comes in several forms. And I like this word, insight. Sometimes it may just be that your knowledge contribution involves you coming up with a new theory. Qualitative research methods will see that a bit more. You come up with a new theory. Please, none of us here is going to come up with a new theory. There's no time to do that. So possibly what we are going to do will be to just extend a theory just one bit small, or you are not even going to extend it. You are just going to provide insight into a phenomenon. So we are saying that as part of the knowledge, contribution to knowledge, it could be theoretical, or you could just be providing insight into a particular phenomenon. Maybe people never understood it that way, and you are now bringing clarity to that. But that depends on the nature of the reality and the area of study you are in finance. Providing insights may not, for some finance topics, providing insights may not be enough. In information systems, it may be enough. In HR, it may be enough. Okay, so when we ask questions about the nature and scope of knowledge, then we'll be interested in what we refer to as epistemology. Okay, then one other important reason why philosophy is important in management research is the issue of ethics. We have already mentioned. I've mentioned this already. It will help researchers explore questions related to the morality of their actions, the impact of their studies on participants and society. Anytime you are given a questionnaire or someone is coming to interview you, they will often ask you whether you agree to certain things. To the extent that sometimes they tell you that if during the interview you are no longer comfortable, you can end it. You read it out there. Sometimes when we are going to record the participant, you will have to do what? Seek for the consent of what? Of the participant. But is it always that you have to seek for the consent of the participant? It may be unethical to do so. But as a PhD researcher, you will later realize that navigating your PhD process comes with a lot of tricks that you won't learn in any book. There was this dean I had to interview, critical. He was critical in bringing Sakai. And UGB, they use Sakai as their learning management system. He was critical in bringing it to UG. And they were going to build a particular system that I was using for my PhD. And this guy was a must interview guy. I must interview him. I went to his office, met this dean several times. He will not give me the opportunity to interview him. Anytime I bring him, so I'm going here, I'm moving house, I will go back and report to my supervisor that I have not been able, he has postponed it. Then my supervisor said, when you go and you just start talking, that's the interview. So I went back, came out with some tricks, greeted, we sat down, and I just started talking about things he needed to hear. And I said, this Sakai thing in UG, the way Prof. Watson was praising you in the business school. He said, about what? He said, he said, you are the brain behind it. You went to US and came out with all these things. I said, really? And I said, yes. That's when the conversation started. But before I entered the office, I had put my phone on record. Very unethical. But exactly, that's what I'm driving at, but necessary to be able to navigate the process. So we was talking, then later he came, Veranda, we were standing, then he was just talking. And I said, okay. Then I left. Later on, you realize that even things he didn't say, I attributed it to him. Unethical, but sometimes that's the way you navigate the process. Because you understand that the way the conversation is going, he probably played a role in ABC. But he was not ready to sit down with me, and I had about 40 questions to go through it and record it and go. He wouldn't do that. So you have to be able to strike that balance in terms of ethics when you are going to collect your data. There's often, in qualitative, to look at something we call gaining access. Yes. There was. I mean, you mean the introductory letter to him? Yes. Yes, I developed it.
Yes.
You have to understand. I developed it. And remember, I like, please listen, I like what he's saying. It means I was no longer going by my interview. Because of the nature of my philosophy, I am also a participant. Because of the nature of my philosophy, the researcher, was also a participant. So I could also, in my thesis, you will see I. They say you can't do that. But in my thesis, a lot of personalized stuff. Because I'm also part of because what actually happened was that I was following the project. So any meeting, they will call me. When the consultants come from India, they will call me. Any meeting, I'll be there taking notes. So I was a participant, but I was also the researcher. The quantitative guys will tell you conflict of interest. But based on my philosophical background, there was no problem. I don't know if I answered it. So going back to the interview guide was no longer necessary.
Yeah.
Because of the way the conversation went, I just went along and got whatever. That no. I never reported that. I never even told my supervisor that I did some of these things. Yes, I attributed some issues to him. But the interesting thing about that, attributing things to him and getting away with it, is also the fact that all the quotes were anonymized. That is why people like Dr. Mwazu will tell me that that's not research. But it depends on how you argue your. Yes. Then it's also important that we talk about philosophy in management research because of this particular term, ontology. And ontology deals with questions about nature of reality and existence. Some people will just say ontology is about reality, and the other one is about nature or how we go about knowing the reality. So ontology will often ask the questions, what exists? And then epistemology will go about how do we go in about knowing what exists. So let me not jump the gun. So knowing this will help management researchers define and understand the nature of entities they are studying. If you are studying, if whatever kind of research you are going to conduct, you would have a unit of what? Analysis. You will have a unit of either an organization. Your unit of analysis could be an organization, not so, or individual. So how you go about understanding it, that will be your reality. So that will be organizations, individuals, or other different kinds of phenomena, like the national identification system. Are you getting it? That would have been the reality in this case. Then we are back to the issue of critical thinking. It's important that we take philosophy of management serious because of critical thinking. Philosophy encourages critical thinking, which is essential in analyzing complex management issues. And it will help us question our assumptions, evaluate our arguments, and explore alternative perspectives. Okay? Then, I think almost the last one, interdisciplinary insights. Remember what we talked about, people like Socrates, Plato, and all those. Their knowledge was not from one field. The same way, when you become a PhD, your knowledge will not come from one source. Yeah, there are books and articles we will recommend to you from NERSC. And you will not be interested in NERSC, but you'll be interested in how they went about understanding reality in NERSC. So some of the references, you see that some are in MIS, some are in management. You are not interested in the phenomena. You are interested in how they went about understanding the phenomenon. So management research often involves interdisciplinary approaches. For some of the fields of study, so for instance, information systems. As for information systems, there's no field that is not in it. So often we say that it is an interdisciplinary area, because finance, you can do something. Agric, you can do some, almost all kinds of stuff. So philosophy also provides a foundation for engaging with other disciplines, such as sociology, psychology. So you cannot get a philosopher who is not grounded in almost Anywhere you throw him, he will be able, and that's what PhD tries to. That is why it is Doctor of Philosophy. That's why it is Doctor of Philosophy. You should have bits and bits of. If you remember that during the orientation, there was this graph I projected. What people expect you to know when you are doing PhD, but that's not the case. You may not. When you look, what your research is, when your topic is approved, that same topic, 3 years, you'll be on it. 3 years. But the idea is that that topic will draw you into other things in terms of curiosity, how you explore other things, how you understand alternative insights. Okay. It also helps researchers navigate the theoretical frameworks and assumptions that underlie various disciplines. Then another one, conceptual clarity. It is important that we as management researchers understand philosophy because it will help us in achieving conceptual clarity in management research. It helps researchers define and refine concepts, ensuring that terms are well defined and theories are logically sound. Okay. Now, okay, we'll end soon. So you see that this approach is different. It's not, this is a lecture, but it's not supposed to be a lecture. So our subsequent ones will not be like this one. So now, what do we mean by management or organizational research? All of us here, that's what we are going to be doing, management, organizational research. This fits into some of the things we talked about, especially when we're looking at what we mean by philosophy. We mentioned systematic what? Systematic something. So management research involves a systematic inquiry into organizational processes, managerial practices, and decision making. And the focus is on understanding and improving various aspects of organizational behavior, structure, and dynamics. So a lot of these things are just management related, which you can easily read and understand. Now let's look at the types of research. Types of research. Have you, for those of you here who are practitioners, you would have done some kind of research to solve some particular organizational problem. Not so. Some of you have done that. There's a problem in an organization, they give you a consultancy, you do some research, come and solve the problem. That's different from the research we are going to do here. The problem we are going to solve, please, if it is practical, you will keep long on this. You will keep long here. Don't try to change the world during this journey. No. Something small, we will just add. So we may likely situate ourselves in basic. So oftentimes we say action research. So that's the applied one. You've done it before. Action, the basic one will just be the one we have been doing. It focuses on theoretical exploration and expanding what? Knowledge. That's what we are interested in, expanding knowledge. That is why we need to understand different philosophical assumptions, different theories. And then when we kickstart our research process, I have a topic now, agreed with my supervisor. I will now be asking myself some questions. So this thing, what theory should I use to explain these things? And then you will now be digging, looking at different kinds of theories. You are not even at methodology yet, and you are thinking about theory. You think about the nature of reality, how you are going to perceive things, and then you agree on your methodology. All of that will inform even your data collection instruments, how you are going to go about it. Okay. So we are not going to be doing applied research. But if in case any of you comes across some consultancy, don't really allow it. So consultancy, we can do it. It doesn't mean that we can do it. Solve some problem. Okay, applied research directed towards solving specific practical problems. Interestingly, for those of you in information systems, mostly we say that research is either they will say quantitative, qualitative, or what? Or mixed? Are you aware that you can do research, get a PhD, and don't do any of this? Yeah. You didn't do qualitative, you didn't do mixed. That's what we call design science. So, Muda here, who can design stuff? The PhD can be about designing some application. Yeah. So, but it is geared towards what we are not interested in, the practical, the applied. But you can do it. People have done it. Design science. They just come up with something, and their PhD products, the output of their PhD would be a prototype. So during the Viva, you come talk, and demonstrate it. They test it and say, it can solve this problem. And they award you a PhD. Muda is smiling. We are not going to allow we are not going to allow you to develop something and run away. Yeah, then we also have natural science and social science. And of course, these differences, we know them. Those medical school and co. And then we are the others. We can also classify research that way. Then we can also have disciplinary research and disciplinary research is conducted within the boundaries of a specific academic discipline. For information systems, we don't do disciplinary because information system itself builds on other. It's not a discipline on its own. It borrows from several kinds of disciplines. So even when we come to theories, often some information system academics argue that information systems hasn't got a theory because it borrows almost all its theories from other disciplines, economics, psychology, and whatnot, except one theory, process virtualization theory, which is touted as the theory in that particular field. So if you look at some fields, they have everything is within that. They have everything, theories in that field. So for some of you, when it comes to you choosing a theory to explain your phenomena, your supervisor will tell you, you choose a theory and you say, but that's not an HR theory. But in the case of information system, any theory, as long as it explains the phenomena, you are good to go because of its what? Interdisciplinary nature. Okay. Then the last one, evolution. We are almost ending. Evolution, yes. So, Madam Gifty is taking us to case study. So I want you to understand things this way. Next week, we'll do more of this. These three terms go together. So we are saying this one is about what exists. How do we go about knowing what exists? And that will inform how we will now collect our data and all of that, analyze and all of that. It is only until we get here that we now start thinking about our research method. Not research method and research methodology, they are two different things. Do you agree with me? Research method and research methodology, they are two different things. Case study is just an example of a research method. No, it depends. It depends. If you get some big consultancy and it requires that we sit and talk to people and gather cases, it will fall under that. It can fall under that. Okay. Okay. So this one, Yeah, about 4 slides left. Evolution of management and organizational research. Yeah, so this one, I think you can read about it also. Yeah. I mean, if you ask ChatGPT, it will just, it will, and then you just read it out. So historical overview of key schools of thought. Management research has evolved through various schools of thought that have shaped the field's development. Yeah, so there are many schools of thought, but there are contemporary management theories like scientific management, behavioral school, contingency school, and all of that. All these are self-explanatory. Yeah, under scientific management, you will come across Frederick Taylor, Henry Fayol, and who? Yes. Okay. Any question? A type. Yes. Any question? It's almost 7 o'clock. Yes. So our take home would be this. If you were to provide a historical overview of key schools of thought in terms of the evolution of management, organizational research, what will you say? Just a page. Yeah. Evaluate the evolution, provide a historical overview of key schools of thought in terms of the evolution of management or organizational research. Management or organizational research. So 4 people are online. No, 3 or 2. Christiana SL. Are you there? Christiana. Mudassir. No.
Yes, Prof. I'm here.
You are around. Have you been following?
Yes, I'm around, Prof. Yes, I've been
We are
around.
saying that you have an assignment. Provide a historical review of key schools of thought.
That's right.
In terms of the evolution of management organizational research.
That's right.
1,000 words. 1,000 words.
Okay. All right.
So what I'm going to do is I will create a Turnitin account for everybody in the class. So something like that, you just push it there. When we come to class, we want to read it or want to explain, we can pull it from there. That way, because we are thinking of how we can train start testing your writing skills. Because that's what PhD, that's what it's going to be about. So if you are afraid of that, you will not be able to make any progress. So we'll take the emails. I try and see if I can pull it from the UCM. Then I'll create it for. Adiata Sini.
Prof.
Have you been following?
Yes, please.
Did you write down the assignment?
Yes.
1,000 words. Mudassir.
Okay.
Mohammed.
Yes, Prof.
Are you around?
Yes, I'm around, Prof.
Okay.
Mhm.
Christiana. Hello, Christiana.
Prof, it's not Christiana. It's Joseph Abo.
Okay, yes. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you.
I'm glad you have joined online.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, those of you online, if you have any difficulties, always let me know.
Yes, please.
Okay, Prof.
Yes, so there's a concern about attendance. What is the concern? Of taking attendance. Yes. Because it's very important if you miss out on these things. So let's just get a piece of paper and then we do attendance for today. It's important because assuming somebody disappears and then appears third trimester for proposal. Yes, so Muda, take note of those online and you add them to the. So those online, your UIN, send it on the platform so that he would add it to the in the chat box here. Next week when we meet. Next week Monday, we'll discuss the evolution and then proceed to the next lecture. So it will be a brief discussion, and everybody will try to contribute and tell us what he has dug up in terms of the evolution of management research overhead. Yes. Okay.
In the academia, we do more of basic research than applied, which main priority is to add to knowledge. But we also do very little of applied research,
Yes,
which are supposed to be solving the practical issues that we have on the ground. So at what point do we align academic research?
So though the basic research is theoretical.
Sure.
Let's take it from the point of view of you doing a research paper, very purely basic, theoretical, or even your thesis, if you escalate it to the level of your thesis. When you are concluding your thesis, your conclusion, you would have to clearly indicate the implications of that thesis for research, theory, and practice. At the undergraduate level, when you do recommendations. Now you have passed that level. You don't do recommendations. You have to show the implications of your research. For those of us in academia, theory, which is related to basic research, and those in industry, what is the implication of what you have studied for those in industry? So those in industry, this is where they are going to be picking. But mostly, I think in the global south, there's a disconnect between academia and industry. Are you listening? It is not the responsibility of the researcher to use his research to solve a practical problem. Our job ends when the paper is published. It is the industry's responsibility to draw on the implications of our study for practice. So some big organizations, they have access to the databases. We also have. Then they look at some papers and see the implications. What kind of research is coming up? What are they suggesting? Then they can align their companies, whatever their operations are, towards that. So though we are saying basic, but your study will provide implications that can inform practice. Yes. Problems. Yeah. Yes. You mean those in the health, in the sciences? They have also published. Yes. So that is why when we're looking at types of research, we looked at several types. We have basic and applied. That's one. Then we have natural and social science. So even those in the natural sciences, they can conduct research, which would be, though natural science can be practical or basic or both. So somebody, maybe a medical doctor, they are studying a particular condition and how they were able to overcome that or address that condition. Then they do a paper about it. You see, that's very practical oriented. Maybe future occurrences of such ailments can easily be curtailed. But that paper will have a theoretical, and the theoretical aspect is what we talk about in terms of the contribution to what? Literature. Then the practical implications will also be there for other doctors to rely on to be able to solve the problem. So if you also look at this particular one, design science, That is in the social sciences like information system. That is similar to what the doctors practically the doctors are doing. Because if he does research using design science to come up with an app that will solve a particular problem, you see that it will be related to what you are talking about. But he would also have contributed theoretically in terms of the literature. Apart from the app, he would have developed practically.
Yeah. Prof,
Yes.
please, can one do apply research without a philosophy?
Without, Azar, he's asking, can you do apply research without a philosophy? I think so. Yes. Because, yeah, do you get his question? Consultancy, basically, without a philosophy. Master, the philosophy is money. Yes, you can. Yes. But even with those in the finance discipline, and later on you will see, they will do their thesis and write, and their supervisors will not, they won't even have anything on philosophy. But other finance people too will tell you, no, bring something in there. A lot of these things also will depend on the kind of supervisor you get and the kind of training the supervisor got. So along the way, you will realize that I have learned this, but my supervisor says I shouldn't do that. What are you going to do? In the interim, you have to satisfy supervisor. Otherwise, you can't submit. Yes. Yes. Don't take that stringent approach to say that no. When I read, they said, at some point, you have to satisfy supervisor, Frank, so that you can submit. Now, when you finish, you can write and challenge anybody. Yes. This question about whether without a philosophy. Yeah, applied research to solve a practical problem. Can you do it without a philosophy? Yes. You've done it severally. The word philosophy never even crossed your mind. That's why I said that it was money that was the philosophy. Yes, because they are not even interested. So sometimes this is what happens. You know the philosophy at the back of your mind. Because many academics do practice research, get the money, and they get their paper. When they are doing the paper, the philosophy will go there. Are you getting it? But when they are submitting reports to the NGO or submit philosophy, when you are publishing it,
that's what even though you might not have particular knowledge there.
Yes.
But
it's inherent.
It's inherent.
Yes, it's inherent. Yeah, you are right. That. But for Mr. Isaac, the philosophy was money. Yeah. So that brings us to the end of today's. I think on Friday we have qualitative. Yeah. So all the books I'll share it. That's how it's going to be. I'm happy you have enjoyed it. It can be very confusing. The only way you can get out of this confusion is to do your reading. And you have to be very smart about it. Now there are apps that can let you listen to articles. Instead of reading them, listen to them. There are apps. You download your paper whilst you are driving, you are listening to it. It will read everything to you. Yeah. There are also apps out there that you can use to summarize the paper for you. Yes. So you have to learn how to depend on some of these things, because that is the order of the day. Otherwise, you will not be a smart researcher. Share it. Oh, you will get them. And that's it. Yeah, you can stop the record. Don't stop. Oh, have they asked, put some questions?